Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the current events, the Constitution, and an explanation of those things into your home each month. I'm James Barrett, and with Mark Malachowski, we're going to be here tonight to provide you some insight. Mark, what are our subjects tonight?
Well, first of all, we've got Bengahzi.
Benghazi, are we talking about the Libyan consulate in North Africa?
Yeah, what happened, I think it was September 11th, 2012. The consulate in Benghazi, Libya, the American consulate, got attacked, and the ambassador and 3 Navy SEALs were killed.
Okay, well, we're talking about, you said September 11th. That sounds a lot like another day in history. Was that a special day in history, Mark?
Well, yeah, that's the, the original. Well, actually, there was a couple attacks on the World Trade Center. The first one didn't work. They blew up part of the parking lot.
Right.
And the second one was more effective. They took some airplanes and knocked down the Twin Towers. So on the anniversary of that, there's always some trouble. And with, Muslim extremists or Islamic extremists. And in this case, there's been some recent developments because Congress has been trying to subpoena this paperwork for 9 months or a year or so. But then there was a court order. I think it was Judicial Watch is a private group or a funded group that sued the administration.
Under the Freedom of Information Act.
Right. And then out came this White House email that had been previously hidden from the subpoena. So it kind of brings up the whole balance of power thing right now where the Congress has subpoena power, but if the executive branch ignores it, nothing happens because it gets referred back to the executive branch.
Well, that goes over to the Attorney General.
Right, it's part of the executive branch. So.
Right, and if the Attorney General doesn't follow through with any type of punishment or further investigation, it gets kind of whitewashed.
Well, the thing is, I think that Congress can don't they have a little jail there if somebody's in contempt? Can't they just put them there?
Well, unfortunately, Congress doesn't really have that power. They can hold them in contempt of Congress.
Right.
But what happens is that gets referred to the Attorney General for prosecution.
Right.
And if the Attorney General is not going to prosecute, then that contempt of Congress actually means nothing. In fact, the Attorney General has been held in contempt of Congress himself.
But
no one prosecuted him for that contempt of Congress.
He didn't seem very concerned about that.
Okay, well, let's go back to Benghazi because the email I believe you're talking about involves a kind of a general briefing to the White House and how we're going to handle.
Well, it was coming from the White House, right? And it said that they wanted to have the story that the protest was rooted in this video, and a protest caused the attack or the demonstration that got out of hand. And I guess some people were out for a walk. According to Hillary Clinton, some people were out for a walk, and then they ended up. Maybe they brought some rocket launchers and some machine guns and some tactical.
Well, I think we've touched on this a little bit before, and there's a choice of whether or not it was a pre-planned terrorist assault or was it a impromptu reaction to the video. Because in Egypt, there had already been some alleged reaction to the video,
right?
And so what happened was it seemed as though the talking points that went along with that had everything to do with a video. Which, by the way, is a ridiculous video, should have never been made. It's really poor taste. But that's not the basis for a military assault on a compound in North Africa.
Well, Obama said that, I think about 3 or 4 or 5, 6 weeks after the incident, after that November 11th or September 11th, 2012, he told the United Nations that, we have the First Amendment, unfortunately, so you can have these anti-Muslim videotapes, and he was sorry, and it won't happen again. We'll try to. He apologized for the videotape, and he said, but then that wasn't really a good reason for the attack. And then even very recently, he said this was a phony scandal. So Obama stuck to his story that the cause of Ambassador Ted Stevens' death was due to the anti-Muslim videotape, and they put that guy in jail. The problem's solved, and anybody who speaks differently of that. It's just a right-wing conspiracy to embarrass Hillary Clinton or the president, because Hillary Clinton told the parents of the dead SEALs and that they were going to get this video guy and they were going to get the bottom of this. And it's kind of interesting because shortly after the first 9/11 attack, they knew who did that first explosion, who ordered that explosion in the parking lot of the Twin Towers.
Right.
And shortly after...
It was the Blind Sheik.
The Blind Sheik. And then shortly after the 9/11 of the Twin Towers with the airplanes, they said, oh, this is Osama bin Laden within a couple weeks. But this has been almost a year and a half, and we still don't know who ordered the attack.
Well, that's interesting because I know CNN interviewed one of the main leaders of that attack, and I also understand British news interviewed a couple of the people from the attack, and in fact, they were staying at beachside resorts drinking pina coladas during the interviews.
Well, what's interesting about that is that, no, Obama still says this is phony scout. He's sticking to it's the Innocence of Muslims video, and there was no militants involved.
Well, wait a minute, I have a question, though. But is there any truth to that rumor?
Well, here you have a guy, Charles Woods, okay, and he was the father of one of the SEALs. And we'll get into that a little sooner. But actually, the SEALs were told reportedly to stand down. Don't go and rescue the consulate. These 3 SEALs disobeyed orders and went to the rescue. They ended up dying as a result. But what Charles Woods said was that this was the Obama failed policy. Gaddafi, who was the president or dictator of Libya, was an enemy of Al-Qaeda. Okay. Gaddafi tried to get rid of Al-Qaeda. When Obama decided to get rid of Gaddafi, Obama sent millions of dollars worth of weapons to Al-Qaeda-related terrorist groups in Libya. These terrorist groups used those American-provided weapons to get rid of Gaddafi, to kill him, to assassinate him, okay? And then the bloodshed didn't discontinue, but it kept on going into the consulate in Benghazi, which resulted in the death of the Americans. So what Charles Wood says, it was Obama's policy of giving millions of dollars of weapons to Al-Qaeda, or Al-Qaeda group, I think Ansari, something like that.
Yeah, Al-Qaeda related.
Yeah, Obama gave them millions of dollars worth of weapons. They
get rid of Gaddafi.
They used that to assassinate, but then they also used, not necessarily these weapons, we don't know, because there really has never been an investigation. But if there had been an investigation, we might have known, that the same group were the same ones who assassinated the ambassador and took over the consulate. And so Charles Woods goes on to say that that I met with Hillary Clinton when the bodies came into Andrews Air Force Base.
You're talking about the body of his son.
Right. And Hillary came up to me, and I gave her a handshake and a hug. And I shook her hand. She said to me, we're going to have that filmmaker arrested.
Well, they did have the filmmaker arrested. And I do understand he went to jail. And
he spent a year. He did a year, yeah.
Yeah, but what's interesting about that, he went to jail for a probation violation because he changed states more than he making the video.
No, the video was not a charge.
The video wasn't a charge. It was because he violated probation by leaving the state of Florida and going to California. And so it was actually a probation violation why he was put into jail, which wasn't publicized that much. It was more about the video. They kept saying the video. But anyway, there's more to it than this.
But there's also...
So what about all the people that were evacuated that made it out alive? Where are they today?
The 30 witnesses... You know, there's been some reports or some rumors that they were threatened if they talked, they would lose their government pensions and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, so Well, here's some other videos that are really more interesting than this innocence of Muslims. I mean, the first time I heard this story and they said it was innocent Muslims, I watched the video and I said, well, maybe that was the cause of the attack.
Right.
But then when some facts started coming out, it seemed kind of incongruous. But what this Charles Wood said is they had 2 drones above the battle in Benghazi feeding real-time video to the Situation Room in the White House. So there was two drones watching this thing for the whole...
Well, don't you think those drones indicated that this was a military assault and not just some people out for a walk with their dogs and an AK-47 in their side?
Well, I think we should see that. I don't see why the American public can't see those videos.
Well, because they would probably show that it was a military assault, because there was one person that testified that was there, and he said that it was a coordinated battle movement, the way they attacked the compound. And then the whole question is, why did they target the compound? Could it be something more than, not the video, but more than just a compound?
Well, that's a good question. But I mean, the big question is who ordered this? A year and a half later, we don't know who ordered it. I mean, that's never, right now, Obama said that it was a video and it's a phony scandal. So it's all, we apologize and we're done. But the thing is, we don't know who ordered the attack. Number 2, we don't know. We haven't seen those videos. So those are 2 things I think the American people should know.
I think what we need to do, Mark, is we need to wait till these hearings are done. But I think at this point we should move on to our next subject. And what is that subject, Mark?
Okay. Well, the Supreme Court basically made a ruling. We call them SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, and it's kind of a disturbing ruling because it deals with reasonable suspicion and probable cause and a police stop.
Which is actually the foundation for a proper police stop is probable cause. So how is the probable cause come up? That are they opening the door to no probable cause searches, or what are they actually doing?
Well, it'd be reasonable suspicion for the stop.
Right.
It'd be probable cause for the arrest.
Right.
Okay, so this is saying that the police need no reasonable suspicion for a stop. They can stop you, they can interrogate you, whether they can search you, I'm assuming they could, from what this says. So it really eviscerates a big chunk of the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Now, the ruling you're talking about is the idea that the police can receive an anonymous tip,
Right.
and then pull you over if the anonymous tip talks about your car or your address or your home or whatever. But then they can stop you, and they can perform a search from that anonymous tip.
Well, what happened in this case, okay, there was an anonymous tip. Someone said, well, this truck just about ran me off the road or swerved or something like that. So police followed this truck. They followed it for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And there was no bad driving. And this is Justice Scalia said, wait a minute, 5 minutes is a long time. No swerving, no bad driving. You know, this is, and they said, well, no, we got this anonymous tip about this car almost running this other car off the road. And so there was reasonable suspicion he was drunk. And I said, well, but Scalia's like, well, what's your reasonable suspicion if he's drunk? If you watch him for 5 minutes, he drives perfectly.
Well, that's the whole that's the question.
Can a drunk drive perfectly for 5 minutes?
Not normally.
You know, and so...
Especially if they're trying to run cars off the road. I would think there's an anger management problem going on right there.
Oh, whatever. So anyway, and so it was Scalia, Ginsburg, Sotomayor, and Kagan were in dissent, which is a strange combination.
Whoa, wait a minute. I got to take a time out on that.
Strange combination.
You're talking about Scalia, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ginsburg.
Ginsburg, and you would never...
How often does Scalia side with those
Ginsburg,
three?
Exactly, with
Ginsburg.
My gosh.
I don't think they've ever been on the same side of any decision.
Ginsburg's one that want to make Father's Day illegal because men are bad. And then, so I mean, Ginsburg's pretty far left. And here's Scalia, who's the most libertarian or conservative person on the court, siding with Ginsburg.
Well, he's a strict constructionist.
Yeah, strict constructionist.
And although that and it's interesting that Justice Thomas was... It's funny because Scalia and Justice Thomas always seem to be on the same side of almost 100% of
very much, you know,
they're very much aligned.
Yeah.
And to have Justice Thomas write the majority opinion, which went with the reasonable suspicion is out the window if you have an anonymous tip, and Scalia is trying to explain why would anyone ever rely on an anonymous tip for any reason when there's no other reasonable suspicion.
Well, what the majority said is there was an eyewitness and had reason to believe that this person was drunk. But Scalia came back and said, well, but how do you know that this anonymous tip is even true? I mean, how do you know its veracity? And then there's some things now that came back and said, well, there's nothing really anonymous anymore because the police know where your GPS on your phone is. They know what everyone's doing. They know what you bought. They know who you are. I mean, you're being tracked every minute. The NSA knows everything. So there's really nothing's anonymous anymore, right? So that was one counter argument that the government knows everything anyway. And so what's the difference if they search or not?
Wait a minute. But there's a big leap there because if the government knows everything anyway,
why do they have to
stop you to say that you're doing something wrong when in fact they could just arrest you at any time? They go to your job and go, well, by the way, we already know everything, so you're busted.
Well, the thing about it is, you know, it's just more fun this way. Okay, so anyway, they pull this guy over, right, after he's driving 5 minutes, perfectly fine, no bad driving, doing the speed limit, and then they search him.
They searched him.
Now,
what did they find in that search?
No, but the thing about it, if someone gets pulled over drunk, I mean, I guess you have the wingspan, right? You get a wingspan search, right?
Right.
And I guess if he really was drunk, but he didn't seem to be drunk in this case.
Well, you know that people pull over for drunk driving, they normally search the car now because they believe that there's something beyond wingspan. They search the trunks, and I got to tell you, as much as whether they're supposed to or not, they have to do an inventory of the car if they're going to tow it.
Well, that's incident to the arrest.
Incident to the arrest.
But if they've got to report you're drunk and they pull you over and you're driving fine and you're not drunk and they give you and you have no indication of being drunk, they don't have a reason for arrest, so you don't have the search incident to the arrest.
Well, you shouldn't even have the search.
Right.
Because you shouldn't be arrested.
But you have the wingspan search in any case.
For weapons.
For weapons, right? And maybe, I don't know whether it was 30 pounds of pot, and I don't know.
Well, I don't think that was within his wingspan.
I don't know if it was.
What, do you have it on the seat as a co-front seat person?
They were probably to go into the carpool lane.
Truck.
The carpool lane, yeah.
Yeah, but wait a minute. See, you realize that drug smugglers just don't throw the bales in the back seat and they say that's it. Normally they're built into the car. And the part I noticed when I read this is where they actually found the marijuana.
Where did they find it?
I believe they found it in hidden compartments, and they probably smelled it. See, this is a traditional. If it's a drug runner, there's always traditional hidden compartments under the back seat, or in the sides, or in the trunk, or the bed of the truck. Those are traditional places they hide 30 pounds of weed. There's normally no 30 pounds of weed sitting on the back seat.
30 pounds of weed is pretty big.
It is big. I mean, you got to put it into something.
No, but how big is 30 pounds of weed is pretty big.
Well, so it depends if it's compressed into kilograms.
But it's not gonna fit in your glove compartment.
No. It would have to be built into the car.
Right.
This is a truck.
So it's probably like a big suitcase worth of stuff.
Well, easily.
Yeah, a big suitcase. Right.
And depending on what kind of marijuana it was, it'd be bigger or smaller.
30 pounds probably wouldn't fit into your carry-on.
No.
Okay, so you would be you can't take that out.
So you can't go on the American Airlines and wait for 3 hours for the crew to show up and then put your stuff up.
No, we'll take it down for you. No, give me that back.
No. I'm going to take it down for you.
Give me back.
Okay, let's go back to that for a second.
Okay, so it doesn't.
Everything I read about this case,
doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. First of all, where was the 30 pounds? Can't even find where the 30 pounds was.
No, they don't talk. Now, what's also interesting about this is okay, the guy wasn't drunk, so they didn't really have reason to search. It probably wasn't wingspan. So it seems to me that the person who made this anonymous tip was the type of person like a malicious tipster,
or
which Scalia's warning against.
He's warning against.
Yeah, and I mean this was probably another dope.
Well,
this was probably a competitor, right?
Yeah, I believe this was a competitor.
Yeah,
and they wanted to take the poor guy off the road because I'm sorry, you're not selling 30 pounds in my district. So you're out of here.
And so but I mean, it doesn't make any sense the way it came down.
Or it could be a disgruntled girlfriend who said, I'm going to bust you because you slapped me. So I'm going to turn you in.
Right.
And then instead of turning him in the normal light, she turned him in when he's holding 30 pounds, which says, bye-bye, you're going to prison.
Now, the question I have, did this anonymous tipster, did this guy have an opportunity, did the attorney of this guy have an opportunity to cross-examine this tipster?
And I would say absolutely not. And on that happy note, I think we should move on to our next subject because you know what?
I think it should be
everything I read, I can't get that detail because the anonymous tipster, anonymous, is the key word there. What's our last subject?
Okay, it's big cell phone night, right?
Oh, cell phone.
Okay, so we've got another cell phone. This one is Supreme Court just heard.
A lot of arguments on this one.
A week or two ago, just very recently, cell phone searches. And this is if you incident to the arrest, which we're talking about is, okay, we're talking about warrant exceptions to the search. Okay, you're supposed to have a warrant. I mean, the big thing in the Bill of Rights.
But is a cell phone something you need a warrant to search?
Well,
and that seems to be the subject.
What's going on here is that you always could search incident to the arrest. Okay, so what happened here, there's two cases, one in California, and this guy got pulled over, and they looked at his cell phone data, and on there he had some stuff that showed criminal and gang activity. So that's the California's case, right? That's Riley versus California. He had an expired license plate, license plate.
No registration.
Registration was old, right? Yeah. So there's,
probable cause.
So they had a good stop there because he wasn't registered. Then when they checked him, he had a suspended license. So they arrested him for the suspended license. Then incident to that arrest, they impounded the car.
Right.
And in the car was a cell phone. And there was also 2 handguns. And now on the cell phone were photos that linked him to a gang shooting.
Right.
Which I guess is possible, but doesn't seem much sense if you're a gangster that you would take photos of a gang shooting, but maybe he did. So that's what linked him, was he had photos on his camera that related him to a gang shooting, plus the 2 handguns. Okay, so that's Riley versus California. And then you've got U.S. versus Wurie, W-U-R-I-E, and he had a flip phone, and he was suspected of being a crack cocaine dealer. So the cops are talking or whatever, had the phone, and the phone's ringing, And then the cops have the phone, and the person calling is my house. So the cops are like, well, it's the house.
It's your house where you live.
Or
Because this is my house.
the house calling, or my house is calling. And there was a picture on there with a woman with a baby. So the police did a backwards number check on it, got the address, went there, and at the house there was
drugs,
crack and cash.
Crack and cash. A large amount of cash, from what I understand,
So-
from what I read.
So on these things, both of these are, the question is that, okay, so it used to be, you had phones, there was not that much information on it. But now when you're carrying a cell phone, it's almost like having a computer. Most people never carry their computers around with them, and usually those have been in the house or a business. And generally, you'd have to have a search warrant to go in the house or the business.
Right.
In a car, you don't have the same expectation of privacy, right?
Right.
And except maybe in the trunk, but anywhere in your reach for sure in a car, and also it's out in public, just there's less of an expectation. But most people don't carry their computer. But now your cell phone's like your computer. And so that means the police can look at your calendars, look at your emails, look at your GPS, where you've been the whole life of that phone. They can find out just about everything about you from that cell phone. So now things that used to be protected, like, the cops weren't supposed to be looking through letters that were sealed, that you're mailing. Well, that's on your email. Those are your texts, right? All that information is there. So it's a huge trove of information that I think you should have a warrant for, but
Well, wait a minute. It's obvious that the Supreme Court doesn't really. Well, we have.
Well, we don't know yet.
We don't know yet. But this is similar, in its own way, it's kind of similar to the prior discussion we just had about the anonymous tip.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to go with an anonymous tip and say, I can do whatever I want as a police officer with an anonymous tip, which, by the way, at some level there's something legitimate, but overall I don't believe in it. But in this one, to open that cell phone and say, we can do whatever we want with this, and that means all your pictures, all your emails, all your texts, all your calendar, all your appointments, everything like that.
GPS, all your location.
GPS, all your location.
And then if you bought stuff online, so all your purchases, credit card numbers, finances, tax
everything.
returns.
So now the question is that accessible just upon an arrest? Or do you need a specific warrant to go into that phone and say, now I'm going to start tapping down? Now, here's another thing. If you have a code on your phone, do you have to give the officers the code so they can get in? A passcode.
Well, I think that they can probably take that into the station. They probably have a computer guy that can break that.
I understand that, but guess what? Is that enough to say no? Well, when there's a passcode required.
Well, I think you would be in a worse situation if they said, "Well, open your phone for us."
And I say no.
If you say,
you get a warrant.
Yeah, if you say no, that would be some protection. But I still think if they wanted to, they could, once they have possession.
But then the question is, what gives them the authority to go in? Because they don't have that authority yet. Or do they?
Well, they're arguing that they do on the impound.
Are they saying they have that authority now?
Well, the Obama administration is arguing that,
Today they have that.
That's what the Justice Department is arguing. The Solicitor
you're
General.
saying today they have that authority already.
That's what Solicitor General, that's what the Obama administration is arguing. That,
we already have that authority.
That's what they're arguing in the Supreme, and then there's, that's
all basis the Supreme Court.
Well, I think that's the U.S. I'm not sure. I guess it'd be the Attorney General in California is arguing they have a right to see it.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
These guys are saying no.
Where do they derive that right from, Mark?
Well, they have guns.
No, it's not guns and badges, Mark. It's not about guns and badges.
Well,
because
I don't think people are too worried about the badges anymore.
Well, okay, as long as those stinking badges, okay.
Guns,
but here's the deal. The bottom line is, if you have, if you're under the color of authority,
they have pens.
They have some right to if they believe there's going to be a crime in progress or some event that's going to cause injury to somebody. They have that right to stop that.
That's a different. That's exigent serve. That's a different warrant exception.
But are they?
This warrant exception is specifically incident to the arrest. This is not.
Well, they can search your pockets.
Yeah. They're looking for weapons. Right.
And they can search your car.
But do you have a weapon in your
cell phone?
Email data?
No, absolutely not.
Do you have a weapon in your credit card history?
Absolutely not.
Well, you might. If you're
buying, if you purchased guns illegally off Craigslist or wherever else you've been buying guns.
So there's some questions there, but I think that the police power is huge. If the police can do this, you can kind of kiss the Fourth Amendment goodbye in the modern world.
Well, the modern world, we kind of already given all that away.
Because if they can do their phone, that means they can have your computer, your laptop,
But then I have
else.
a question. Now, say
And how about your car data?
Okay, well, hang on.
How about
this? You look at the phone, you see your address, and you say, well, I just arrested you for drunk driving, so now I can go search your home. And then you go to the home, and then I'm going to search on your computer, and now I'm going to search your laptops, now I'm going to search your iPads, your iPhones, anything you got at home, I'm going to search.
Well, how about the...
But where does that come up?
How about the information in your car itself, the GPS system?
Well...
Can they search that?
Well, every place you've been.
Yeah. And how fast you were going, and da-da-da.
Well, that's coming up because they're talking about putting things on every car, tracking them automatically, how many miles you drive.
Right.
And that would also be how much gas you use.
Tracking them, yeah, I'm not sure that they're worried about the gas. We've got more gas.
No, they're not worried about gas.
We've got more gas than we could give away in this country.
No, it's about controlling society because it's easier to keep everyone shut up if you got them under control.
But this whole phone thing is huge. It's huge. This is really the end of the Fourth Amendment. This is the end of the United States being a free country. Well, if that's the
case, how could anyone on the Supreme Court then vote for it if it's the end of the Fourth Amendment?
They don't have any guns. And now, people have phones. They've got pens. They got guns.
Yeah, but is a phone a gun?
Well, some people can pick up a phone and they got lots of guns. So, I think that the Supreme Court might be too afraid to stand up to this.
Well, wait a minute. You have a conservative block of 4. You have a liberal block of 4. Then you have Justice Kennedy that votes on either side of that.
Right.
And as we've seen from our earlier case, they split differently.
But this is a little different than the anonymous tip. The anonymous tip, I think, the anonymous tip does affect,
your rights,
the reasonable suspicion for a stop.
Right.
But this goes into big government control. So I think this really gives the government complete control. I mean, this is complete 1984. This is the end of liberty. Right. And so, big government people, even if they're liberal and they're, don't like police power in some cases, I think they'll go along with this. So I think this is a good chance to pay because this gives the government.
You think this is gonna be upheld?
I think it will. I mean, this gives the government absolute control. I mean, now we're no longer in a country, we're in a gulag.
Well, then the question is, do you have a cell phone anymore?
Well, they already know, so I mean.
Well, they already know everything, so what's the difference? So that's the question.
Well, the difference is if you write a letter, you say something against the government, then, then you
then that's a terrorist act.
Then you get taken care of. Then you get fixed up.
Okay. Well, what happens is that then you made a video.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You made a bad video.
You made a bad video, and that's what really caused the downfall of the Ukraine.
Yeah, the downfall.
And you know why? Because they had a funny video of Putin in the Ukraine, and so he decided it was time to invade.
We should apologize.
Yeah, in fact, we got to apologize.
But so anyway, what's really interesting about this is that both of these cases are, the modern day, and so people are saying, well, since it's a modern technology, it's a modern day, the Bill of Rights doesn't really matter anymore. But I don't really see that's big of a difference. I mean, I think the Bill of Rights, that says you're supposed to be, secure in your person and your papers.
Well, I don't think we're secure, and on that happy note, I think we're going to have to leave it at that. Because we aren't secure in our persons, papers, and things.
Yeah, right. But I would call these papers.
As the final moments of Law Talk wind down, Mark, it's an excellent evening, 3 great subjects, and I really appreciate the good conversation on that.
Okay, call me because I.